Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. By sharing our collective expertise, we will show you how to harness, control, and use your own skill set to achieve ultimate success and live the life you want. And now, please welcome your host.
If you're looking forward to conversations that is going to disrupt your mindset, moving you closer to the life that you really wanted to be. Now, Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen is the show that you like to listen to with expert and professionals who have the right information that you need to move you closer to where you wanted to be in life. My name is Omobola Stephen and welcome to the show. On today's show, I have Miriam Gunn, who is the founder of Live Better Coaching and Therapy. Welcome with me on Life Well Lived, Miriam Gunn.
Omobola, thank you so much. This is just a privilege and very, very fun. I was telling you before we started that you are the first person that I have spoken with in a long time from Nigeria. And I just love that this format allows our cultures to have an opportunity to interact with one another. And I never take it for granted that cultures are the same. But as you and I talked, we are very similar in the things that we think are important. So thank you for honoring me by having me on your show.
It's my pleasure once again. I'm humbled by your kind words, Miriam. I'm looking forward to really watch our time with you on the show going forward. Now, Miriam, on the show, now you'll be talking about wisdom and practicality that can help us overcome self-sabotage in our business and our personal life. Now, I know that that's a really worthwhile and interesting topic for discussion on today's show. Can we get the ball rolling?
Yes, for sure. I want to just add, I know it's a very broad topic, but throughout our lifespan, almost everybody has the idea of, oh, maybe I could make a business. Maybe I could do this. You have some people who are naturally business minded, and you have other people who don't necessarily fall into it naturally, but they all have that idea. And there are a lot of pitfalls in that space. And in addition, what I find is a lot of people who are very successful in their business are very unsuccessful in their life. And if you are unsuccessful in your life, you are unsuccessful. So I wanted to talk about this topic. I think it's incredibly far-reaching and very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I'd like us to begin with stress, which is very rife and very common. Now, we talk about stress from competing priorities, which is on the plate of an individual. Now, what is the best approach in handling this kind of situation in order to get to a balanced life?
I would say there's several things that I would recommend. First of all, what stresses you is not necessarily going to be the thing that stresses me. And sometimes people have to zoom out. Sometimes people get the response in their body that they're stressed. Their heart starts to race, or they get headaches, tension headaches, or the knots across their back, and they know that they're stressed. But sometimes they don't even know why they're stressed. They have too many things to do and not enough time to do it. Especially if you're a parent. You and I were talking about how you have children, I have children, mine are a little older than yours. That's the ultimate competing priority between what is best for them and what is best for your business or your adult life, your working profession. All of that, creates these spaces inside you of they're both good things and I need to do them, but I don't know. They're both screaming for attention. So I recommend that sometimes people take a deep breath or two or three to get them out of a different place in their brain. When you're stressed, you're in the deep center part of your brain, which is called your amygdala. That's your fight, flight, or freeze. And generally, people don't think well from that space. So I ask people if, I am a therapist. I also am a business coach. When I'm with one of my clients, I ask them, let's get in the room. Let's take a couple deep breaths. Let's get into a different part of our brain and talk about what is actually stressing you out so that we can at least get clarity. Because sometimes people say, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. But really, they have enough time and maybe they're not managing their margins correctly, or they have enough time, but they are adding one too many things in. They'll have a list of 12 things to do in 5 minutes before they leave for work, which is not actually doable. So take a couple deep breaths, get into the front part of your brain, which is called your prefrontal cortex. Allow yourself to think clearly. And then you have to do some assessments about these competing priorities. You have to ask things like, okay, I know this is urgent, but is it actually important? And sometimes things are urgent, but they aren't important. And if that's the case, you need to slide them over. Sometimes you need to say, is it humanly possible for me to do these competing priorities? And sometimes that means a really large change. It might be a change of a job. It might be, it's so different for every single person that it's hard to address this global question. But I would say the first step is getting out of that reactive part of your brain and into the calm part of your brain, and then assessing what is the actual competing priority. I would say a second step might be to involve someone who is wise in your life, a mentor, a therapist, a coach, a friend, and to say, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'm thinking about doing. I had a conversation yesterday with someone who's having she's a friend, not a patient, client. She is having some severe health issues. And she was saying, my body needs this, but my profession needs this. And we were talking back and forth, and she was considering taking a leave of absence and wanted to know kind of what did I think. And she'd involved 3 other wise people in her life, a physician, a friend, another therapist. And to me, that was very wise because it allowed her to get enough distance to say, what do I actually need to do for my life? So that's a long answer, but that's how I would start.
Oh, absolutely. Now, we're still talking about one good similar situation. A person who is confronted with a lot of priorities on their plate, and yet they still have to do it all. What is your advice, or what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I know that people believe they have to do it all, but I sometimes think we have to zoom out and start saying no to certain things. So I would say at a superficial level, there are some things that are more important than others, and people have to learn how to set boundaries and say no. For example, in my life at one point, I was very involved with a faith-based community that had a lot of meetings. And I didn't actually need to be at the meetings. And I said to the pastor, I want to be involved. I can no longer attend your meetings. Send me the meeting minutes. I will still sign up to help with various things. But I just had to reduce that thing. So sometimes it's a matter of learning how to say no. Sometimes it's a matter of learning, looking at the whole thing and saying, am I doing something inefficiently where I could trim a little bit of time here or there? But in general, I find that there are always a couple things people can say no to. Sometimes that's not the case. And when that's not the case, then you do some self-care to take care of your heart and your mind and your spirit. You spend time in prayer and meditation. You, at the end of the day, take a long bath or a shower so that you can get good sleep. But in general, usually there is something that you can say no to. So that's where I would have people start.
Oh, right. Now, I think that in kind of situations, it also brings confusion, right? Because you have so many things on your plate, and then you're confused about which one to focus on or not. Now, talking about confusion, is it really a lie? And why do most people get caught up in this trap?
I think that often, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, often people are not thinking their own thoughts. They're thinking thoughts that have been put on them by social media or society or their parents. Even if they're adults, they carry those thoughts around with them in their heads. And sometimes people get confused as to what is really important because they haven't taken the time to say, is this my thought? Is this my value? They just go through their life a little bit on autopilot, and they don't realize until they stop. Sometimes it's a retreat, or it is, unfortunately, a mental breakdown, or they just get maybe stopped by all of the things happening, and they have this light bulb moment. Why am I doing all of this? Why am I in this rat race? And I have seen this happen with physicians. I've seen this happen with extremely high performing people. I had somebody who's very successful in business say, why do I have to scale my business? Everybody's telling me I have to scale, I have to do more, I have to have it bigger. And she said, I love my life. I love what it is. Now, I work with men and women, and they approach this problem differently. But it really comes down to, are these my thoughts and my values that are putting all this pressure on me? That's where I would start with that.
Absolutely. Thank you once again, Miriam Gunn, for that beautiful insight. Now, I'm talking about thoughts and also about limiting beliefs. I'd like you to share insight on the correlation between being in a state of confusion and also having a limiting beliefs. How does this work? Are they correlated, and how can we get out of this?
Yeah. Limiting beliefs are one of the deep tragedies of the human condition, because each of us is capable of so much more than we believe we are capable of. And it is really quite unfair that some people are raised in an environment where they are taught to believe in themselves, they're taught to stretch their capability. And then so many other people are raised in places where they are taught to think that they're less than they are. And I'm not, blaming parents per se. I think cultures also fit in this. But I remember at one point in time, well, I'm going to back up and say, I think each of us lives multiple lives. And those lives are dictated by our limiting beliefs. And then somehow we break out of a limiting belief and we expand into our next version of who we are. I remember before I got my degree in therapy, I had been mentoring students for quite a while. And my children were young, and I was feeling very frustrated, and I was going to maybe get this degree. And I was talking to a friend, and I said, I don't know. I haven't been to school in 20 years. I don't know if I'm still smart enough for this or whatever. And it's going to take 5 years. And this friend of mine said, well, what are you going to be in 5 years? You're going to be 5 years older, either with the degree or without. And that one sentence challenged that belief. I went back into school, and the first day I felt super stupid because I was 20 years older than everybody else. And then I changed my mindset, and I said, what a privilege that I live in a day and an age, and that I have an economic status where I can go to school. And I had a limiting belief about, I'm a mom, I shouldn't be taking time and energy away from my children. How am I going to do this? And then I had to change that belief to, how about if I make a decision that I'm only going to do school while they're in school? And so I went to my classes and I studied until 3 o'clock, and then they came home, and then I was just a mom. And that's not to say that everybody has to make that choice. That was a choice that I made that allowed these two competing identities within me to, occur. After I took one class, it was easy to take other classes because that belief had been changed, and it was very fun. It was an extremely rewarding time in my life. Then I had this space of, how can I change this relationship or that relationship? And I was talking with a friend who said, Miriam, I think this cage is in your mind. I don't think that this is a real thing. You experience it, it's real inside you, but I don't think it's real outside of you. And I started acting as if that was true. And again, my life unfolded. And then I thought, who am I to work with these, high performing clients who have, businesses with $1 million revenues and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just little old me. And I had to change that and say, Miriam, your life has value. You have 30 years of experience. You have something to offer. As soon as I changed that, I could approach them with equality. So these limiting beliefs holds people back. And this is a long answer. Is it okay if I continue with this, or do you want to ask a different question?
Yes, of course you can, because I like to ask you this question as you converse it. It seems easier said than done. It seems so like automatic. It happens overnight, but I know it doesn't happen overnight for us to, break away or eliminate these limiting beliefs. Miriam, can you help us or provide strategies or tips or tools that can help us to eliminate these limiting beliefs?
It's a tricky one, because I think about if you have a piece of furniture that's almost too big, not too big, but almost too big to get through a doorway, you can't just whoosh, carry it out. You have to kind of like move it and tweak it and move it and tweak and turn. And I think that challenging these limiting beliefs in ourselves is like that. So sometimes, well, often, I might even say always, you have to see someone else who is doing it. And there are examples in books, and I love podcasts and videos, and you can see someone who's 3 steps before, and they always have a story, and they share, I used to be like this, and then I changed. And you start to think, well, if they could do it, I could do it. I think that's one of the first places, is to find someone who is doing what you want to do, who has become who you want to become, and you can model after them. I think you have to give yourself grace and patience with yourself to say, this isn't going to happen overnight. And it isn't a failure if it doesn't work. Like when someone is learning how to set boundaries with someone, I say, the success is that you tried. And now tell me, what did you learn? And let's try again. So it's not a failure unless you quit. And whenever you are working with a limiting belief, you have to like push and push and push and push until that belief changes. And one day you wake up and you say, whoa, I don't believe that about myself anymore. I've moved into a new space. It's kind of like the sunrise. You can't tell, it's dark, now it's a little bit lighter, but the sun isn't up. And then all of a sudden it pops up and you're like, there I am.
Miriam, have you ever felt lonely before in life?
Yes.
What was your experience like? And now it's really a normal situation in life to feel lonely.
Sometimes loneliness is a mindset, and sometimes you can feel lonely when there are people all around you, and it's a matter of reaching out and connecting and find something. Sometimes people say, I have nothing in common with them. And I say, well, you're a human being and you breathe and you both put your pants on one leg at a time. There's something, find it. Sometimes it's lonely when you're working on a big project and none of your friends are working on anything similar, where I think a lot of high performing people, it takes them a while to find maybe their group or their community. And for a while they think nobody else thinks like I do. And that is a lonely space. Sometimes you can have people who love you all around you, but they aren't experiencing what you're experiencing. Like I told you before we started the show, I had some pretty severe health issues years ago. And when that's the case, you can use words and you can tell them, but if they haven't experienced it, it doesn't maybe go as deep as it might. And this is where I think sometimes forums and communities, masterminds, these even Facebook groups, if you can find someone who has experienced something similar, there's a huge relief when you say, oh, I felt that too. And but loneliness is it's part of the human condition, because nobody can live in your head and your mind. Nobody can see it and feel it exactly as you can. And so I kind of can think, in a weird way, you can make friends with loneliness and say, it's okay. I can love me. I can take care of me. I can ask, what do I need? And I can take care of that. And you sometimes when you fill yourself up, you become a much better friend to other people. Sometimes when people are lonely, they can get kind of needy, and then people run away from them. It feels unattractive, and then people run away. And so when people are lonely, and it doesn't matter your level of success, sometimes the more successful you are and the wealthier you are, the less connected you feel, because there are fewer people who are like you. And with those people, I say, do something for someone else. It will help you feel less lonely.
Right. Now, in these chaotic situations that we all find ourselves, in this moment we are stressed, in the next moment we find ourselves overwhelmed, in the next moment we are anxious. Now, how can we begin to identify these three, mental health issues, and how can we set a balance or attain balance in all of these?
This would go similar to my first answer. You have to get out of your reactive brain. When when we were in earlier times, the threats to us were real. Like if you lived 300-400 years ago and you got cut with a sword and you got an infection and you were worried about dying, that is not anxiety. That is real fear, because it could actually happen. And our brain, our fight, flight, freeze space, is really wired to get us into a space to keep us safe. In our current day and age, most of the things we're worried about aren't actually going to harm us. We're worried about what people think, or we're worried about disappointing someone or letting someone down. And I think in that space, again, getting out of that amygdala space in your brain, getting into your prefrontal cortex and asking some questions. Okay, what am I really worried about? This overwhelmed space. Do I actually have to do everything, or do I just think I have to do everything? With the anxiety, can I talk with someone? Many times, well, I was talking with my son the other day, and he was feeling very, very stressed about something. And I said, tell me about it. What, just talk out loud. What are you worried about? And he talked about these different things, and I asked him a question, and he said, whoa, I feel so much better just having talked about it. So I think sometimes finding someone to connect to and talk about, not complain. Like complaining is overrated, and complaining makes you feel worse. But talking with someone and saying, I'm feeling anxious about these things. Do you have any ideas? Or I don't need your ideas. I just need to connect. Lots of times as people connect, they feel less overwhelmed, less anxious. And to be honest with you, I forgot the third thing you wanted me to talk about.
Thank you once again, Miriam, for those insights. Now, really worthwhile. I'm ending up with this question. I want us to talk about bad habits and also our health. Now, they are correlated in some way, but I want us to talk about mental health and also handling our bad habits, how we can get out of this rut, right? What are some of the bad habits or patterns that can affect or pose serious mental health issues to us?
Yeah, I would say the number one bad habit I see in people is they don't monitor their thoughts. They think that every thought they have is real, and our brain is churning out a ton of thoughts. Like if you just stop and get quiet and listen to it, it's all random. It's like, oh my gosh, is my hair okay? And oh, my stomach is wondering if I need to eat something. And do they like me, or do they think this is dumb? It's like this long string of thoughts. And many people have a whole bunch of thoughts that say, you're a loser, you suck, you can't do this, you. And I tell people, if you do not stop that bit of thinking, you can't move forward in your life. You have to say to your brain, that is not true. I won't accept it, and I'm going to do something that proves otherwise. So if someone says you are, your brain says you're incompetent, you have to stop it and say, that is unkind. I will not accept it. And then do an action that shows you are competent. Like if someone says, I'm so disorganized in their head, oh, I can't make it anywhere on time, and I just let balls drop and whatever. Stop saying that. You reinforce it, And so then you become more that way. Instead, say, I am becoming someone who is organized, and start with a tiny action like putting your keys in the same place every single time you walk through the door, instead of throwing them on the counter or on the bed or leaving them in a jacket or leaving them in your bag or whatnot. There are ways to challenge these thoughts that happen in our heads that will then allow you to become a different kind of person. So I know lots of people say, well, I want to prioritize my health, but I just love sugar so much, or I don't have time to exercise or whatever. Well, you're never going to change the habit to start exercising until you change the thought that says, I can't do it, which goes back to your limiting beliefs. So I ask people to start paying attention to what they're thinking and to just make the acknowledgement that everything I think isn't true and that I have the ability to change it.
Right. Now, Miriam, I'll be happy or glad if you can share your projects. Any projects you have in the pipeline with my audience? Do you have any?
Yes, right now I am, as I mentioned, I work with high-performing people in individual coaching. I'm working right now on a class because I would like to reach kind of a larger set of people who may not be able to access that individual coaching, some group coaching. And I'm really excited about it. It is how to move yourself into the next level of you. And it goes right along with all the things we've been talking about today. How to assess where you are, where you're stuck, where do you want to go? What are the mindsets that you need to change? What are the boundaries that you need to change? And then how you assess the changes you're making. It sounds like a lot of head work, but really, small actions have huge return on investment for people. And it doesn't matter if you are someone who is living in poverty or if you are inordinately successful. The next level is always reached by a new mindset and then small actions and then reevaluation. So I'm super excited about this project. It's almost done. And yeah, people who are interested in it can contact me directly at leavebetter.com or Miriam at leavebetter. Anyway, thank you for asking.
Thank you for that. Wish you best of luck in the project and subsequent ones. Miriam?
Thank you.
All right. Like to share a pattern word with my audience?
Would I like to share a
pattern word with my audience?
A pattern word. I don't think I know what you mean. Can you ask the question differently?
Can you share a motivating or inspiring line with my audience?
A motivating or inspiring line. Yes. I love Peter Drucker was a businessman, very famous in the United States years ago. And he said, the only way to, well, let me think about this. The only way to predict your life is to create it. And I love that the personal ownership of that you get to make some decisions. And a lot of times people say, well, I can't because of this. Again, the limiting beliefs. But you get to create your life. And I, for one, get very excited about this idea of creating a life, not being on the river and letting the current just take you wherever, but using the oars in the boat to row and make some decisions about where do I want to go. So Peter Drucker, the only way to predict your life is to create it.
Absolutely. Now that's very truthful, and that's really motivating line you have there, Miriam Gunn. Thank you once again for that. Miriam, you'd like to share your website and your social media handles to my audience?
Yes. You can reach me at admin@leavebetter. That's all one word, at leavebetter.com, or Miriam, Miriam, @leavebetter.com. My Instagram is @leavebetter. Same with Facebook. My Twitter is at @nowleavebetter.
Now, Miriam, I would like you to spell that word leave right. I would like my audience to get it clearer.
Yes. It's
Yes.
LEAVEBETTER. Yes,
Right.
the
Thank
reason
you
I
for that
named my
clarification.
company that was I wanted the person who came to me to leave better, but also I wanted them to leave whatever their life touched better. I wanted them to leave the planet better, their family better, their coworkers better, their pets better. I just wanted this synergistic space where people I come in contact with, I help, and then they help others.
Right. Good to know. It's such a great pleasure having you on the show, Miriam Gunn. Really had an impactful and inspiring time with you. I can only wish you the best of luck once again going forward.
Oh, thank you so much, Omobola. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Such an honor and pleasure once again. Now, if you'd like to catch up any missed episodes of the podcast, you can catch them up on any cross promotion platforms you bump into or any podcast distribution platforms you bump into online. And do have a great time listening to the show. Or perhaps you're looking forward to sharing disruptive mindship conversations on any topics or subjects on the personal development and self-improvement online. Well, it's by Omobola Stephen. You can do so by mailing me on my mailbox omobolasteven.outlook.com or omobolasteven@outlook.com. Now, I'll be looking forward to your mail and connecting with you. We can have a great show together and be the change that the world is waiting for. I need you to stay safe. With all my love, I talk to you soon. Bye for now. Bye.